welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm just going to jump right in. So welcome to the clearing. Over the next half hour, we will engage in a contemplative practice inspired by the example of Harriet Tubman from different stages in her life. We will begin with a somatic meditation led by Art. Then we will hear a reflection on young Harriet read by Altagracia, followed by a reflection on Harriet in the Wilderness by Taylor, concluding with a reading of Indira's work on Moses as Bodhisattva, read by our dear friend Ian, who's finishing a class, will join us in a second. Each work will be punctuated by a moment of stillness in which you are invited to reflect on the imaging work on the screen created by our friend Tyrone behind us. Tubman is a well-known figure, but just for some background, she was born in March 1822 as Araminta Ross, and later changed her name to Harriet 3 years before her first trip to freedom in 1849. Over the course of a decade, Tubman would travel back and forth between Maryland and Philadelphia, New York and Canada on what she would call trips of mercy to help liberate enslaved people. She made over a dozen trips and freed 70 to 80 people. For her bravery and resilience, Harriet is also known to us as Moses. Welcome, Ian. Entire Miles' biographic work of Tubman, called Night Flyer, she writes, "Slavery and injury, unease and illness cast Minty Ross into the wilderness, a place of material hardship, spiritual difficulty, and potentiality. The biblically inspired wilderness was well known to Black holy women. Moses and the Israelites had first traversed this foreboding place as they wandered the ancient desert that surrounded Egypt. Drawn from these Bible stories and applied to lived life, the metaphorical wilderness Black women believers entered could be a zone of spiritual temptation and visceral trial, as well as a space of growth and revelation," end quote. As we enter this clearing together in the wilderness, we invite you to take a posture of contemplation or meditation, softening your gaze and your attention. And we begin our time in the wilderness with the following questions, which will have a chance at the end to reflect. What does the wilderness mean to you? What does it look like and sound like? What work are you called to do here? Who are you taking with you? Who are you going back for?
So friends, we'll begin just getting in touch with our bodies. Somatic is a word that some of you may be familiar with. It just means embodied, to be in the body, and we carry our histories, our ancestries in our bodies. Many of these practices come to us from various indigenous traditions, and I invite you to work with any level of comfort that you have as we do these exercises, and just to come into awareness with yourself. And just notice where you're holding tension in your body. Notice where gravity meets the earth in your body. Maybe you're sitting in a chair and you can feel your sits bones grounded against the chair and your feet as well. Or if you're on a cushion, just feeling your sits bones against the earth, supported. And as you breathe naturally, just become aware of the place where the air enters your nostrils and travels inward into your lungs. Becoming aware of this ongoing journey of breath, renewal, inhale, exhale. A daily dance of living. I invite you to let that breath travel low into your abdomen, expanding in the rib cage, even expanding in your back space. Let yourself just be filled with air. And as you breathe, you might start to notice lingering tensions or discomfort, maybe ease, and it's okay to engage with that in a gentle rock or a stretch, a sway, any supportive movements. Notice any tension in your jaw. You can let your tongue drop from the roof of your mouth. And maybe lovingly just swash your tongue around your teeth on the inside of your mouth, brushing the inside of your lips with your tongue. This mouth that communicates, this mouth that eats, this mouth that connects you to life. And just gently start to raise your shoulders up toward your ears. Just gently raising your shoulders. And you can start to maybe compress a little bit. No more than is uncomfortable, but we're just gonna hold a little bit of tension in our shoulders, and on an exhale, release. And we'll do that for another round. Just slowly allow yourself to compress. Hold that tension, and maybe you'll even feel your hands start to ball up in a fist, or your chest want to close in compression, and you can just let yourself be with that and exhale and release. And I invite you to bring your hands to any part of your body right now that could use a little gentle massage or a little bit of warmth. And we can explore gentle tapping sensations along our skin, or patting, or a deep muscle rub. Let this moment be a moment of loving connection with your beautiful body. And take a moment to ask, what does my body need in this moment to arrive fully in our space? And I invite us to take one collective inhale, just a deep inhale, and exhale with a sigh, opening our circle together. We'll do one more collective round of breath, inhaling and exhaling with a sigh. And we can offer a gesture of welcome to our circle. Just maybe hands open or palms together, whatever helps you to open to our circle. We'll greet one another with a gesture. Thank you.
This is a hymn for Harriet. O sweet child, with the seeds of heaven planted in your spirit, with the fire for freedom blazing so all can hear it. O sweet child, whose eyes glimmer with ancestral wisdom, who dreams of a world akin to the Creator's kingdom. O sweet child, with skin that knows suffering and a heart that aches, gifted visions from above, a new future to make. O sweet Araminta, great ancestor, still small, plant liberation in the spirits of all, now and forever. Ashe.
This is a poem called Clearing, before, during, and after Harriet. The space between these trees, cathedral by another name, holds the weight of our hope. It's me they follow. I follow too. A living concert of beings. Birdsong, moss, starlight, a choir of ancestors. Let me tell you that freedom is the sight of green crawling up the side of a red maple, the dance of the river obscuring each footprint, the taste of amaranth and lily roots and sassafras, the call of the barred owl, the North Star. The voices of my mother, her mother, my father, and our father sing to me as I have sung to you. Here in this breath, in this emptiness that surrounds, full of possibility. Listen. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going.
This is written by our classmate Indira Allegra, who isn't here today, but so I'm honored to read in their stead. Dark eyes of hungry deer watching behind the kudzu vine, warblers darting bright yellow arcs over the Choptank River. Clusters of soft tulip trees and smooth gray beach with roots lifting from the surface of the earth as if to walk beside you. I hiked hundreds of miles of woods in and around Maryland last summer, meditating on your first escape. I imagined moments you must have found your body suddenly nested into the duff, face opening up into a shock of red maple and toothy chestnut oak, wondering how long you had lain there, wondering if the slave catcher's dogs would find you. Everything is different after a brain injury, isn't it? I wasn't born with seizures either, but when circumstance cracks you open, What pours in is vivid. You described your deja vu, your out-of-body experiences mapping large swaths of forest you had never seen before, that you would later successfully find your way through, somehow. You said God spoke to you through these visions, showed you things that hadn't happened yet, but when they came to pass, the grief was still the same. You'd wake exhausted on the forest floor, haunted with headaches, and yet the presence of the divine was so close you could take his hand, and you did. If I could lift you up today, I'd explain how neurons work or don't, how doctors might guess your symptoms were consistent with atonic temporal lobe seizures. I know, because I get them too. I know what it's like to be cracked open by life, such that your sense of self spills out across the earth, like the changing colors of the leaves the autumn you first escaped. There's less room for fear than there is the vivid image of what you need to do. It's not hard to be brave. It's not hard to be selfless. It's just that the empty room of your body becomes filled with the energy of thy will be done, squeezing needs for recognition, small talk, or guarantees of safety to the side. When your mind is blown open like that, there's no turning back if you're committed to freedom. You'd have to carry a pistol to make that point clear to others, but I understand. The only way to get to Philadelphia, or Nirvana perhaps, is to focus one foot in front of the other.
Before we close, I want to offer an opportunity for us to share what's come up for you in this moment. Perhaps a response to some of the questions about what the wilderness looks like for you, what work you're called to do, who you're taking with you, or who you're going back for, or perhaps one of the reflections that was shared sparked something. And then we'll close with another breathing exercise to close the space, but the floor is ours.
So first of all, thank you all for just shepherding such a sacred space. I don't quite have the answers to the questions that you shared, but I did want to lift up Toni Morrison and the clearing scene in Beloved. That's immediately kind of what I thought about when I heard the framing of the clearing here. This space of intergenerational joy, lament, of being beneath the trees, kind of like the photo that you had up here, but then also like I think, was it Suggs, baby Suggs, I think it was, telling her children and her grandchildren to like love their bodies, love their negated black flesh. And so perhaps that's a calling, like Harriet did, for all of us to love on ourselves, regardless of the parts of ourselves that are negated, objectified, or deemed as unworthy, or unlovable beyond this clearing. I think when you think of Harriet, you think of love, you think of radical love, you think of a love that transcends time, space. And yeah, maybe it's just a call to continue to love, and love, in fact, even more stubbornly when you're in the wilderness.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a voice to an aspect of my life when I thought about Harriet in this moment right now of caring for the least of these, and how so often in the past I have felt like a least of these, and have watched as my version of the least of these didn't fit the cultural acceptance of least of these. And so I've made it a point from time to time to be present to others who were like me, fell between the cracks, walking between here and there, no real label. And I think just to say that I have felt the power of calling in that. And it went against my ego desire to be king of the world, recognized, applauded. It's just to be a servant and to just serve where I'm called to.
Yeah, thank you so much for this really beautiful chapel. I think I'm struck especially by our classmate Indira's words that Ian just shared. There's so much in there, from their like literally retracing Harriet's steps in those woods, like retracing the journey to freedom, to, yeah, just capturing for her what it means to live, like literally on the doing, like being so called to that, it's literally life or death every day, and how impossible that is, except through like being so close, like needing to rely on the divine, on something bigger. And I feel that, I've been feeling that in my own life recently, and reflecting on that within hard situations. Like, wow, when things feel impossible, there has to be, bigger power that holds, and to lean into that. And then just that image of her being on the forest floor, and both in a place of, holding tears, but like finding God there. And also, and just the clarity too, I love that line of something like being so clear that there's no turning back, that you hold a pistol in your hand, just to be that clear about it. Yeah, thanks.
Harriet Tubman. she was the inspiration for me deciding to do liberation theology. It was through her I actually got to find about James Cone. And she was the first person who I read about her story, and I felt like so connected to a God who liberates. Because in her ministry, the stuff I read about her when I was in Ghana was, she was getting visions about, finding her way to freedom. And I remember having to navigate my own way to freedom, and then I just found out, it was on the internet. I was just reading, and I just found her. And her zeal, her passion for freedom, and that really and God being with her through that journey, because I know it's not going to be easy to just run away and then come back and then save a lot of people. So her life actually inspired me to to be here, to even be in union. And one thing also inspired me that to actually help others be free is to set yourself free. And I feel like I'm still in the work in liberating myself so that I can be able to liberate others. Yeah. So that's one thing Harriet has left a mark on me for. Yeah.
Reverend Minister, Pastor, Bishop Jordan Jones. Oof. Thank you for this powerful experience and invitation into contemplation. To answer the question, who I'm taking with me, you, my buddy, my brother, taking Jordan with me, and if you're not with me, I'm coming back for you for sure. Period. Full stop. One of the takeaways for me today is lately I've been really struggling with depression, like this thick fog, and the question of wilderness. Uncertainty feels like wilderness right now. Depression feels like the wilderness right now. And this experience has reminded me, well, you've reminded me through this experience that I can find respite within myself. And through movement, through breath, through stillness, through contemplation, there are places, little pockets that you can practice marinage and fugitivity and escape to some calm, peaceful place within a chaotic inner life that is a reflection of a chaotic and catastrophic exterior, outer socio-political moment. So you're brilliant, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
We have time for one more reflection before we close the circle. I think Prince wanted to share a poem as well. So if you want to come up, feel free.
Okay. Yeah. This is something that has been sitting with me, and I wrote down. Might not be rhythmic as the poems that have been read, but I just hope it also sits with you all. Negro, copper skin, nigger. These words stir something deep within us. Anger, grief, discomfort, and maybe fear. And yet, they have been spoken here intentionally, not recklessly. Words like this have shaped not just American history, but the world, carrying with them the violence, the oppression, and the deliberate erasure of Black humanity. Over time, society has given us new labels: Black people, African American, person of color. But these new names cannot mask the truth that stains of racism lingering in every syllable. They cannot carry the anguish of a nigger pleading for mercy, hanging from a lynching tree. They cannot contain the devastation of a Negro woman clutching a mattress soaked in her husband's blood. They cannot encompass the degradation of a black woman treated as less than human, her womb reduced to a factory of labor. And they cannot hold the brutality of the reality of a black boy beaten, maimed, and disfigured in both body and memory, falsely accused of desecrating the sanctity of a white woman's body. These words are heavy with the truth of what has been done to us, to our ancestors, and as much as they hurt to hear, they demand that we confront the violence, the trauma, and the resilience embedded in our history. I come from a post-colonial African country, a land once rich with culture, language, and self-determination, only to be ravaged by greedy colonizers. Our history, like yours, is one of theft, of land, of labor, and life. The chains of slavery that bound your ancestors in America began on our shores. My ancestors were stripped of their lands, their language, their gods, and their dignity. They were reduced to tools in someone else's empire, a system that turned black skin into a commodity and black bodies into disposable labor. Colonization didn't just steal resources, it planted seed of inferiority that continues to grow. It taught us to see ourselves less, to devalue our culture, and to internalize the lie that blackness was a burden. And when I came to America, I learned that the lie stresses across oceans. Coming to America, I thought I was leaving behind the shadow of colonization. I thought this land, with its promise of freedom and opportunity, would see me as the person I was, a student, a thinker, and a dreamer. But here, I was no longer a human being, just a human being. I was a black boy in a white space. I remember one moment vividly. I was interning on Broad Street near Wall Street. It was a beautiful day, and I took a lunch break to walk from Stone Street to the New York Stock Exchange. As I moved to the crowd, I encountered a couple and their kids blocking my path. I asked politely, "Excuse me," and the man turned to me, his eyes cold and distant. "We don't have money," he said, dismissing me as though I begged. I repeated, "Excuse me, you are in my way." His wife nudged him aside, and I moved past. But just a few steps forward, I heard him whisper to her, his voice sharp and venomous. "Why do they allow niggers here? Makes this place not look like it was before." In that millisecond, my entire body froze. A wave of emotion crashed over me, anger, pain, and fear. Anger because I was reduced to a slur, spoken with the precision of respectability. Pain because the words carried the weight of history I was now part of, a history of black men and women, humiliated, brutalized, and erased. And fear because I realized that in the man's eyes, my humanity meant nothing, and in another time, in another place, his word would have led to my death. It was in this moment I understood something deeply unsettling. I was never a nigger before I came here. My blackness and my immigrant identity was never a burden until I stepped into the world that insisted they were. The racism I faced on the street is not separate from the racism that built Wall Street itself. Let us not forget that Wall Street was once the site of slave markets where the black bodies were bought and sold to fuel an economy that excluded us. Let us not forget the word of this country, the railroads, the factories, and the institutions which was built on enslaved Africans. And let us not forget that colonization and slavery were two sides of the same coin, both fueled by the desire to exploit black labor while erasing black humanity. Even now, the legacy of system persists. It lives in the policy that police our neighborhood, in the prison that is filled with black men, in the schools that failed our children in the subtle way every day. So when I say God bless America, I am not praising white imperialism. I'm not speaking of the capitalism that devalues life and reduces humanity to profit. I am speaking of the good people who are victims of this system. Those who fight every day for justice, equality, and dignity. I speak of my fellow Africans estranged from home, trying to make a life in a country that refused to make space for them. I speak of black Americans who carry the weight of this country on their back, who have built and sustained it with labor and love, even when it gave nothing in return. God bless you. Remember Emmett Till, 14 years boy who was tortured and murdered. Bernarda Taylor, 26 years old woman who was shot in her own home in 2022. She was sleeping. Ahmed Arbery, 25 years old man, was chased and killed in Georgia while jogging. George Floyd, his neck was pinned in the knee of the policeman for 9 minutes, called out, "I cannot breathe," before his life was stolen. These names are not just headlines. Their lives stolen, stories interrupted, futures erased. I want you all to remember these names, etched into the fabric of Black history. We have come far, and this testimony is our testimony that we are strong and we are paying the price of survival, and we shall be free. Thank you.
Thank you, Prince.
So let's come back to our breath. Let us always come back to our breath. And as you sit, find a supported length in your spine. And I invite us to just gently maybe rock forward and backward, gently as we tend to everything we've generated today, as we leave this space, knowing that our bodies carry wisdom, our bodies are doing so much processing, and we just gently allow space for our body to do what it naturally does, to heal. And as you are able, I invite you to gently come to a stand. We've been sitting for a while, so if your feet have fallen asleep, maybe shake them out, or just stay seated if it's easier for you. And let's just shake out our hands and our feet, our wrists. We can just twist side to side. Maybe shrug our shoulders, do some shoulder circles, and just take a brief moment to let your eyes connect with someone in our circle today. And you can offer a smile if that feels helpful, or just be as you are. And remember that we are in community as we leave this place. Yeah. And let's close with just a gesture of strength for ourselves. I'm going to do this one and just offer that to our group as we go forward. Know that we go together. Thank you.